I don't feel like doing the recap. You do the recap.
I gotta do it.
You do the recap. It was your episode. You don't even have to like. It all had to do with you. You do the recap.
Okay. But I'm such a blabber. Okay.
That's fine.
So
There's no one else here. We have like the whole half hour. Go for it.
wait, we live right now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. On the last episode of IOTH Academy. Beep, 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 beep. Riz Lord meets Riz Goddess. We went on a date. It was so chill. He made dinner. It was like a something in the grove. It was a lamb, something rotisserie. I don't know all the details. He made the dinner, brought flowers, super cool. We kissed a lot. Uh tried to like connect on like an emotional level. That's very foggy, typical teenage man doesn't understand women. Went to the gala afterwards and had a little dancey dance. That was special for Garnet because she didn't really have a good gala. And then went to go find Cryas. And then he was like, I don't know, somewhere in the Undercroft or near the Undercroft. Yeah, you can feel free to correct me on anything. Uh, oh, and the Fae gave Garnet a bunch of booze, and I passed a bunch of checks, so hopefully that wasn't poison. And then Cryas brought me to his little hideout. It's very sketchy. He's got writing and bullshit everywhere. Um, he's a little crazy, and there's some kind of deal about a book and a memory that Cryas just doesn't want to do for some reason. Something about they wouldn't uphold the legacy, whatever. And he did some deal where it involves the Tower of War and something about Naomi and mirror magic. And Garnet was like, "Don't worry about that. Naomi ain't around no more." And I don't think he picked up on that, but she was kind of drunk, so she probably wasn't being very direct with it. So Cryas agreed to do the deal because Garnet said focus on the firmament stuff with the sage, and he's like, "Okay." And then she went and did some studying, and then Elle now had potions of restoration. She drank one, Garnet drank one. They agreed to help each other and looking into spheres, how to make more. The end.
We're doing all of our recaps this way from now on. That's going to be the official. I'm just going to like have everyone roll a d20, and whoever gets the lowest has to do the recap. This is no notes. Perfect.
For inspos.
I will 100% give inspo for people who do the recap. That is absolutely a thing. That is 100% a thing. All right. First off, I'm going to put.
Oh, it's Fenty's go talk. Yeah, true. We chatted.
All right. So I put Rowan and Leg Day in detention. But yeah, so this was Garnet's day out, basically, literally in some cases. We were short 2 of our cast members, but fuck it, we'll do it live. So let's go ahead and start out with stars and wishes from this episode. What's your standout, like favorite thing that happened here, and what's something you hope to see happen or learn more about, etc.?
Oh, Cyrus was so cute today. Oh, he was so cute with the flowers and the everything. It was nice. And yeah, I was kind of saving that gala thing because it's like one of those like, oh, that was a bad experience, but it's not like a horrible thing, but it's like if you didn't go to your prom or like you didn't go to your graduation, it's like that's an important event out of your life. Socially, you should enjoy that because it only happens once. So then going to like a fake mini gala with Cyrus was important for her. So, yay.
That was a nice touch. I thought that was awesome.
For normalcy.
Wishes.
Oh.
Yeah.
How does this work? Is that things we want to see more of, or just like
things you hope will happen, things you want more of, things you'd like to learn more about? If you're like, man, I hope we get into combat next session, or I want to learn more about this, or I hope character X does Y, anything, something you want, something you're hoping for.
I'm like wondering how or when like Cryas and Garnet can like reconnect now that things have like pushed them so far against each other or away from each other. That'd be like an interesting friendship that could mature into something or not. But Garnet's very much like wanting to go back to their past friendship and he's all different now, so that's weird. Sven and her were, it'd be cool to see how their friendship ends up happening because they were sort of 2 people who didn't really understand each other or whatever, and now their sort of destinies are more similar than most of the party,
Mm-hmm.
and how they're handling that responsibility is so different. Like Sven is like handling it very gracefully and maturely, and Garnet like wants to do that and thinks she's doing that, but sees how Sven is like so normal and good at processing bad things. And probably Garnet would want to learn more about her or be more like her without actually admitting to it. So that's an interesting thing too.
Sven's like that student who's been taking poli-sci classes since the very beginning, like way before anyone's even, when everyone else is still thinking about, dates and tests and stuff. Like she's just been learning about privilege the entire time and about, socioeconomic disparity and all those things. And so she's already been an activist, and she has this very sort of clear, focused set of goals and ideals. And another big difference is that Garnet, from birth, had this divine mark and this divine destiny and was surrounded by that, and then had all this trauma happen to her. And so there's this, sense of disillusionment of being, understanding the world one way and having that torn down.
Mm-hmm.
Sventisco was never special. He was just a kid. Yeah, she had a sorceress gift, but like she went through all of these hard things and then got this affirmation directly from her god, who she met in person. So her perspective, even though both of them have this, sign of favor and these divine gifts that have been bestowed upon them, Sventisco's trajectory has been so different that it's given her a totally different perspective on things compared to Garnet. So, I know she's a teen, she will blame herself, but she can't really blame herself for being different about that.
Yeah.
One thing that I want to bring up is poor Pavam. Because Garnet's understanding of how that conversation ended and Pavam's understanding of how that conversation ended are completely different.
Yeah, I figured. I was like, I wonder if he's gonna make me roll deception, but it's like then I was gonna be like, I straight up, that's what she thinks,
Mm-hmm.
because like it was like this carefully worded thing
Mm-hmm.
about like how much she misses their past and like loved how she was when she was with him, and it was like a hint, but it wasn't like an intentional hint. It was just her maybe realizing how good life was with him and not necessarily connecting the dots that it was like happiness him related. It was this life with
That set
you
of
in it.
parameters. Mm-hmm.
And you were one of the parameters, but like he was a big contributor to making life normal when things weren't
Mm-hmm.
normal. And had being one of the few people that treated her normally or was that person of trust. And now
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and then when he was like, "Oh, that's in the past," it was like this complete like erase of that's
Mm.
not reality anymore, and that kind of like broke it all for her because she like is this delusion that like, oh, if I slowly fix things, things can calm down and go back to that. I can go back to
Mm-hmm.
Bronte. We can go back to Bronte and like blah 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 blah. And he was like, "Nah, that's in the past. Like I got night shit to do." Was like the big takeaways. But the most important thing I remember was like him saying that's in the past, and that was like, oh, okay, things are different now.
Oh,
Okay.
and that's totally not how he meant it either. But I'm not going to clear that up for them. Teenagers, this do be
Yeah.
how it is. I said on Twitter that the central tension of Anacra is hope versus despair. And that's partially true, but one of the conflicts that also kind of runs through this story especially is clinging to the past, is wanting to return to a previous state of innocence. And we're seeing that come more and more to the forefront with Garnet. It didn't really how long do you feel like that has been part of her psychology or at the forefront of her psychology, this desire to return to a previous idyllic state?
I think it's tough because I think for the longest time, like even like during the infernal talks with like
Mm-hmm.
wanting to kill like Undamaler and just going to this power trip mode, it was like that everything in the past is so unredeemable that now it's about building a future.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're gonna upset people, you might as well like at least get what you want out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like kind of put into her head that all she does is disappoint people, and like that's why no one like came to rescue her or like
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So it's like, well, if I'm just this disappointment, then I'm gonna make myself happy and make the world how I want it to be. And then sort of like meeting Elle now and slowly having a sense of like actual care and someone that believes that she can have the power on her own and that she isn't a disappointment and she is capable of accomplishing things. It's sort of become this, okay, I don't need to piss people off to get what I want. I don't need, like, I am a capable person. So that confidence came back. But then when she started kinda using that power to fix things, it was like, "Oh, fuck, that is unredeemable." Like, for example, like, killing Naomi was a big, like, "I'm just fucked." Like, this Void's taking over, I can't stop it. I might as well just use the Void to erase my guilt. And she kinda still feels that way of, like, erase my guilt and go down that path because there is Zalar won't forgive me. Nobody who hears about this is gonna forgive me. And then Pavam's sort of like she also thinks, like, Pavan was one of the few Brontons she showed her powers to, and once he was like, all this, like, stuff that you're talking about, that life that we had is in the past and, things have changed, and, like, she very much took that as, "Oh, fuck," like, yeah, things have changed, and now that kinda broke that delusion of, I can't go back to being this happy-go-lucky Bronton, Zalarian, worshipping whatever, because I've just killed all these people and whatever and void stuff. And then also the fact that she used void magic in front of all the Bronthans when they cleared the mirror clones was another like, I have to choose between like dispatching these things now and messing with my image or maintaining an image and possibly harming people. And it's like she's always gonna choose the choice that's better for everyone else. So it's like at some point she thinks she can't go back. And I think Pavam affirming that she can't go back to that definitely like is now okay, future time, Cyrus, fucking Void, like whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
no more Brontha, whatever. And I think at some point she does hope, maybe still holds on to the delusion that she can go back to Brontha and be who she was before, but like it's like people are convincing her one way or another and she's being pulled so many different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who've asked in the chat about like the void corruption stuff, it's like I think it'd be boring to RP someone who's just like a zombie the whole time. So I've
Mm-hmm.
interpreted void corruption as the confusion around understanding feelings, not having feelings, but forcing them into what the situation may have, to being in a delusion of like, how would I feel in this situation or how should I feel? And then also not feeling a connection to others and always thinking the worst and always thinking that you're alone when you're not. Um, and trying to make it more interesting and complex than just robot. So
Mm-hmm. Which really speaks to the Pevom conversation, because what he was trying to say is like, what's past is gone and that's okay. But that didn't get through it at all. Partially because he's a clumsy kid and partially because of that disconnect that you mentioned.
yeah, and probably like him saying that the past is gone and that's okay. It's not okay for her because
Right. She's not there.
she's didn't get to experience all the like normal Brompton upbringing that he did. And it's gone because her dad is dead, and it's gone because she got all this trauma happen to her. So it's not good that things have changed. And what would have made her feel better is to say, like, things have changed, but it's not too late to go back, or it's not too late
Mm-hmm.
for things to change in a good direction too, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But she, like, half, like, confessed her feelings of, like, not about, "Hey, I love you," or "I like you right now," but, like, "I miss us." It's like when you were to rekindle with an ex, it's like, "I miss us. Not right
Mm-hmm.
now, but I miss what we had," and kinda
Mm-hmm.
like that. And the way he was like, "Nah," like, it was like, "Oh, never mind. I don't think I can go back to that life anymore."
It's going to be fun when they reconnect and he has a totally different interpretation of what went down. That's going to cause some chaos.
Yeah.
Something else that I was going to bring up. I think after their last conversation with Elle now, he finally, because she's tried to have some version of this conversation like 5 times, and I think after that last conversation, she finally knows how to move forward with Garnet. And it's this balance between treating Garnet like a mage and also treating her like a teenager, which is not something that Elna has been good at. But I think she might actually have something now that could improve things in that direction, but we will see.
Yeah, that was like a tough conversation for Garnet because she kind of felt like that was something that like that was the deal they were already on, that they were like protecting each other, and she feels like she's just been doing things that she had to do, like the ritual at Onderud, and then I'm trying to remember like the situation where she took in a fuck ton of void corruption just cuz. I think it was like surrounding like some heavy pain that she was having, and she thought that void corruption was just like turning off a switch, which is kind of like feels like that's what El now sort of taught her, is like,
right.
And she thought it was going to be the sense of focus because she feels like she's been so distracted by and so worried and flustered over everything that she thought, and she probably continues to think, that void corruption will be the way to be happy because she won't have to feel guilt, she won't have to feel sad, and like, and then if she continues down that road, then like that whole Seosh ideology of like, oh, if we just end the world, then we just don't have to suffer anymore. Like that's if we just go down linearly where she's thinking that trajectory right now, it's like that could be something that would make sense. But she still is like in a belief state that experiencing life is still worth doing, but it is incredibly painful for her because every day it's either like feeling guilty that about Naomi, about Ariana, getting people in trouble at the Fraxis, or almost killing them. The underworld stuff with Untamaler, to like even that whole thing with the Machine Prince, to like obviously her guilt about her dad. Feels like Bronta's in the wrong hands because that all happened. So like just like number of things, and so just dealing with that guilt isn't easy because her friends are also like, oh, she's crazy, and like we don't agree with her and aren't like supporting her. So it's like she has to deal with that by herself. So she's like, well, if I gotta be by myself, I might as well like be fully by myself. And Elle now being like, let's help each other, is more like, we're doing that. We're trying to not make each other get killed. But she's still like, if I have to pull the trigger, I'ma do it if that's the amount of time I have to think and do something. So Elle now saying that was more like, cool, so you're not gonna do some dumb shit, but it's not gonna stop me from doing dumb shit if it
and she's literally saying, hey, let's agree to not do dumb shit.
Yeah.
There are 2 main forces in the world that exemplify despair, and they're pretty obvious. One of them is the Herald. That's literally his name. That's literally his job. And he keeps going on and on about Naomi. And the reason for that is because, and this is a tactic that he's probably going to change up as well, but there's a long list of things that Garnet blames herself for. And most of those things are things that she, has questionable actual guilt in. And then there's Naomi, who she killed. Under, like, yeah, the circumstances were pretty extenuating. It's understandable why she did that, but she still, murdered a child. So that is the thing that the Herald is focusing on. But really, all those other things as well should be what he's going for, because the Herald exemplifies the kind of despair that is self-centered. That says, you specifically, you in particular, are a horrible person. You are awful. Whereas Seosh is this sort of wider existential despair of, it's not I'm a horrible person and I shouldn't be here. It's none of this is worth it. The good does not outweigh the bad. This sort of large scale, and it's easy to pull in. It's almost like a more intellectual, philosophical despair rather than this very guilt and shame focused. And one of them, like running from one, is what leads to the other. You just described it yourself. If Garnet continues to voluntarily accrue void corruption, then the sense of her mistakes and failures will probably be dulled. She's going to, like, that emotion, there's a chance, depending on how that works, that that sense of shame will grow distant from that. But the more distant you are from that, the easier it is to say, you know, all this suffering outweighs any amount of good. So really, it just makes sense to nuke it all.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there hasn't been a relationship between Garnet and the Herald, like when Alex sort of poofed, because I feel like just like despair has driven almost all of her decisions, like just like being worried, or just either it's drove a lot of her decisions or is like now going to be the result of those decisions. And it's just something she feels like all the time, but is trying to see how everyone else is feeling, and it's like, okay, that's how I'm supposed to be. Because again, like the whole emotional drive is very the steering wheel is off. So
The
yeah, and it's
the Herald
oh, go ahead.
absolutely has an agenda involving Garnet. It just may not be the kind that involves cooperation.
Figure that when he's just such a dick. I mean, she's like, no, she's being tormented, and she's like almost thinks she deserves it, and she's like fine with it because a lot of like Myric's like training was like this punishment sort of to increase your mental fortitude. So it was all this kind of like torment is just thinking that she's gonna get the it's like exposure therapy, like you're gonna
Right.
slowly get over these things the more you're shown, and she's trying to think of it that way, and also knows that it's a tactic by him, so she's not
Right.
gonna let it get to her because she's seen how he was with Alex and stuff. So but there's almost like deep down of like, well, if I can't get out of this hole, if I can't stop despair, if I can't stop feeling just so alone and unconnected to everyone, then like I might as well harness that and live in that and learn to be comfortable in that bed that you've made, and you know, hit the ground running, quite literally hit the ground and then start running. So at this point it's like using void stuff to do that, which is not a healthy coping mechanism to just shut things off instead of learn how to process them. But it sounds
Yeah.
like Elle now is putting in a good effort to help with that. But then she also just did the same thing. So she's not exactly leading by example, and Garnet knows that. So
She's a terrible
um
mom. She's
so
trying,
then
but she's
this
not a good mom.
so this episode was also like learning different coping mechanisms, whether it was just living in a delusion of being with someone who doesn't know anything about that, who thinks that you're a completely different person and just thinks you're just so perfect when you think you're just totally the opposite of that. So kind of living in that delusion with Cyrus is like one coping mechanism. If I just ignore reality and make my own with someone who is down to live in that kind of dream, then cool. To like, oh, alcohol is actually pretty sweet. I was way happier. Obviously not trying to drive the whole teenage alcoholism, but it's just a coping mechanism to explore, or that she did explore.
You know, if we
And
portray child murder by teenagers, that's completely fine. But as soon as we show them drinking underage, now we're bad people.
like, I don't know. Like,
Now the channel's bad influence. No, I hear you. I hear you. It's a thing. Go ahead.
oh yeah, that and um also just straight up lying, like just straight up not telling people how you really feel. Like every time you got into deep conversations, just shifting the subject because she doesn't want to down everyone else's mood. And since, yeah, they provide her happiness, she doesn't obviously want to stop them from doing that. So she's very good at just looking joyful and then switching the conversation or topic somewhere else. And that's kind of been the main coping mechanism right now of just change topics.
Well, if she ever feels like actually turning on the Herald, you know, tapping into the Herald stuff. She's done plenty of research on the topic and probably
Well, doesn't know his real name though. That's the only thing. We haven't been able to call on him because no real name.
true.
Unless that's
True.
something we were told, but I don't
Nope.
remember.
Nope. The Herald doesn't have a name. Sorry. The Herald doesn't have a true name.
Oh, like a called upon, like when you say the name, his ears buzz kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one of the things that makes the Herald different from the other Infernals. There's no, if there is a word you can say that suddenly just makes the Herald home in on your location, nobody knows what that word is. It's not written down anywhere.
Because all we know is that he's like attracted to despair and vulnerable, weak people. I don't know what kind of dealings he does, but
well, you also know that he messes with dream magic. So if you ever go if you ever mess with dream stuff without all the protective stuff that the sage gave you, you can probably flag him down.
Yeah, I guess we don't actually know like what benefits Alex even got from that sort of partnership, because all he got was power and then his body fucking taken over. So it's not exactly enticing to ring up the depression demon and see what other
I already
depressing
have my
shit.
own depression demon. I don't need
yeah, like I already got my own despair's herald. It's all up here, baby.
Well, Garnet has done extensive research on the Infernals, so she would know that the Herald is exceptionally skilled in necromancy magic, psychic magic, obviously, because of the whole prying into your brain and figuring out what makes you tick. Dream magic, probably. You want to talk about the most powerful dream wielder? It's even up between the Sage and the Herald, and a lot of other areas of, at the very least, information and dark magic. If you ever want that info, I can send it over to you because, again, Garnet's done the research.
Yeah. That's good. That'll be a good reminder for next time we see him.
Yep. Just about wrapped up here. I do want to say that we have been talking about geopolitical stuff, and I have found a system for that. That is probably what I'm going to use, and it's going to make it a lot easier as if Garnet ends up moving into the world stage, as it were. So people can look out for some of that stuff coming down the pipe. Anything else you wanted to cover or bring up before we close out?
Oh no, it'll be cool to see that, especially because Athalor and Brontha negotiations are going to start soon. Onderud versus IOTH Academy for the Sage, and the tribes that Mantra is from, and sort of how they're dealing with the whole Bathollo thing, and what their whole relationships and power levels are. It's just good to know like who has what and who's strong, who's got how many people. Because if Onderud are, like the Europe, of Anacra, it's good to know how intimidating they are, or how small they are compared to everybody else.
I can give you the short version. Onderud is very, very small and has assloads of money and magic.
Oh, so nope, not a lot of people, just
small population. That's why they sell weapons to everybody else. You can get enchanted weapons from them and war magic and stuff like that.
Oh. So they're strong, just not.
Yeah, they don't do war. They don't do war. But they're very highly defensible. All these details and more, I'm gonna get like a cheat sheet going. But the thing that I picked up lets me make character sheets for each realm with like their own stats and everything. So it should be fairly easy to understand from that regard. Okay, outside of that, unless you had anything else, I think we can go ahead and wrap up. We should be back with the whole gang next week.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So, this was a lot of fun. Thank you. I love these solo episodes. They give us a chance to like get down with the role play and really get into characters' heads, and which is hard to do when we're blowing things up and saving the world. So I had a ton of fun. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, everyone. See you next time.